Welcome back to the Successful Survivors podcast. We're so glad you're here. Today, we're going to talk about what survivors know that others don't. I think we don't give ourselves nearly enough credit for the things that we've learned, the things that we know how to do, the things that we do well. We know how to survive. We know how to make it through anything. So today, I want to ask all of our successful survivors for their comments about what do they know that they wouldn't have known if they hadn't gone through what they went through. So, gosh, Lee, I'm so glad that you volunteered to go first. What do you think? What do you think survivors know that others don't?
I think obviously survivors are very good at being resourceful. Any successful survivor I know, and those on their way to being successful survivors, carry the trait of tenacity. They're not going to just, slink up into a little ball and let the world happen to them. They're going to figure out how to keep moving forward or get moving forward.
Mm-hmm. Oh, that's so good, Lee. I think that's spot on. What about you, Amber? What do you think?
I think survivors have a lot of skills that we don't realize we have necessarily. I mean, as this group has talked, I think people begin to see the different skills that they have. And I would challenge those who are listening to kind of reflect and say, oh, yeah, I did do that before, and identify it as a skill, because we know that we have them, and we know that we're rock stars or badass or however youngsters and adults want to think of it, depending on their language, Lee, and the terminology, but we don't realize what that specifically is. When I think of resiliency coming back from challenges, when I was growing up, a lot of mine was emotional. And I think sometimes that's devalued or not identified as a big issue. But when you've been constantly beat down by words of people that matter, it can really, really wear on you. But a skill of survivors is we're able to counteract that and say, oh, maybe that wasn't true. Or maybe dad had some issues of his own when he was under the influence of drugs or alcohol. And we're able to kind of in my book, I talk about throwing dirt back in the face of those who gave it to us. We're able to do that as survivors. And that's the resiliency aspect of it, is say, maybe that wasn't personal to me. And it's resiliency that if the person says something mean to me now as an adult, I'm actually going to think about, is that true about me? That's a pretty cool tactic that we've developed.
Oh, that's really good. Diana, what do you think?
I have my 5 things. I have my 5 things. Like, I literally have 5 things. I always have the 5 things. So, and you guys kind of touch on some of them, but one of them is you stay strong in your head. We have handled some really tough stuff as kids, and even kids, trauma, teenagers, adults, even whenever you have trauma, when you've been through something traumatic, you've handled that strong stuff. When other things come against you, you're like, really? I got this. It's so you already know that you've handled the tough stuff. So we know how to stay strong in our head and keep our cool a little bit more than maybe someone who hasn't had the depth of the trauma. Remember we talk about, Rhonda, I got my husband, God love him, but about that deep. Me, I'm 6 feet under. I'm like, so I have that ability, but that comes from the trauma, right? We've been through all that stuff. So now when hard things come, I can deal with hard things, right? So the other thing that's important is trusting your gut. I think we do that a lot as survivors. It's the same thing that I talked about earlier with staying, strong in your head. We can trust our gut. We know where our feelers are, right? We have those oversensitive feelers that we know. It's that sense that, okay, when you come up to somebody, you can be in a crowd of people. This doesn't feel right. This human right here, gonna keep an eye on that one because that doesn't feel right to me. It just, your hair stands up. So it's just that spidey sense. You know what I mean? You got to trust that gut. Learn from your oops moments, like you screw up when things go wrong. And you just learn from that. And then, so, when you hit that next thing again that happens, that the oops that went wrong, you kind of know how to handle it. I've been down that road. I did that thing. Another thing, MacGyver. Anybody watch that show, MacGyver, back in the day? See Chris doing the thing? Or be a MacGyver. But MacGyver in survival mode, when you're preparing, when you have $10 to eat for 7 days, what do? You buy a case of top ramen and you buy a thing of eggs and you make it gourmet. You make that top ramen last the whole time. I've done it. My son Ryan has done it when he's been in Colorado as a early college grad with no money. So he learned how to do it. That's being a MacGyver. That's creative. Or back in the trauma stories that I've told you guys about, where I was a little kid and I knew something was coming at me, but I put the giraffe and the lion and the sparkless water ball, the obstacle, course, so my dad couldn't get to me in that moment, right? So, MacGyver things. And then the last thing is keeping hope and positive. So we keep that positive vibe. We have the keeping hope. We have Amber's hope book, right? So you keep hopeful. And I think those are the 5 things that I, wrote down really quick, because I think it's really, really important. You just got to stay positive and stay hopeful, because bad stuff happens and you've been through some hard stuff already.
Yeah. Diana, I love that you are always ready with 5 points. You're the 5-point gal. So, Dawn, what do you think?
It's not necessarily that we know them. They're already built in. They're built in from the lived experiences that we went through. And maybe I think that everyone has intuition, but ours is awakened when we go through trauma, whether it's childhood or, teen or adult or whatever. Everyone has it, but ours is awakened, and we know that, yes, the world can be scary, but if one of the things I have on here is we're observant, right? The awakening shouldn't have paralyzed us. It should help us to be observant and to be aware of our surroundings and aware of people, and aware of ourselves, right? So we're able to be aware of ourselves and what we're doing and how we're feeling about something. And I would say empathy. We have lots of empathy for others because we know what it's like to feel scared. And Rhonda, you mentioned this in another podcast, that as successful survivors or any people of trauma, we're not going to let somebody else go that needs help, that's in trouble. We're not going to let them go and just be like, see ya, good luck with that. We're gonna stop and we're gonna help them, right? So that's empathy. We're like, we know what that's like, so we're not going to leave you. Another thing I thought of too was strength of vulnerability. That's what we're doing all on this podcast, right? We're being vulnerable and saying, hey, these are topics that are important, and for helping others to not feel alone and to learn from us, and we can learn from others as they, pop on there and make comments or join us or whatever that looks like. If we share our stories, they'll be willing to share their stories. And I've had so many times where I'm like, I feel like I need to share something, but I'm like, oh, I don't know. But I just do it. So I'm like, okay, you know what? I feel like I'm supposed to share this. So I'm going to do it. And I'm really glad that I did, because it opened a door for someone else to do it. I had 2 teens that opened up that had never opened up at this juvenile center that I went to visit with my church back in Georgia. And they said, Dawn, they've never told us their story. They've never shared until you share. I was like, wow. I'm like, okay, God. So I realized that was a gift that God gave me, because I'm not too afraid to do that. I mean, I'm a little nervous about it, but I just do it, and it happens. So the other thing that I feel like we do is that we're strong for others. I think that for me personally, I had a brother, so I was always strong for him. I was like, somebody's talking, somebody's doing something to you. Nope. I had a situation when I was younger where I was beaten with a belt, and he was this dad was going to grab my brother and said, no, you hit me instead. Right. So not that I wanted to be hit, but I wasn't about to let my brother happen. I wasn't about to let that happen. So I think when we need to be strong for other people, we know how to rise up and do that because we've been there, and we're in a situation or whatever, we can rise up and be strong for other people. And that's part of what we're doing here, is also being vulnerable and strong as well. Saying it's okay to share your story. There's strength in that. There's vulnerability in that. But there's also healing and growth. And you're not alone.
Oh, that's really good, Dawn. Okay, Chris, tell us what you think. Survivors know that other people don't.
Oh, well, it's going to be clear that it's humor, and it gets me in trouble sometimes. That is the same tone that every teacher has ever had when calling on me throughout my entire life. Okay, Chris, go ahead. Well, thank you. That is my gift. Again, what everybody says is true. The ability to walk in a room, scan it, know all the evil in it within seconds. The ability to my mom used to say bullshit a bullshitter. We've got an empathy, caring too much. We got them all. My gift that was given to me was charm. Oh my gosh, am I charming? I gotta tell you, a lot of people say he's very charming, very funny. That's an impression I'm working on. You can figure out who it is. And then the humor, of course. And then the humor is more, as everybody says, a defense mechanism. It's my turtle shell. Man, when I'm feeling any kind of way, I'm just gonna curl up into that shell. And I'm gonna make you laugh until I feel better, and then of course, there's these other weird abilities like the ability to be awesome one-on-one, awesome one on 250, but kind of sucky one on 3. So give me a giant group, give me one person, but don't give me 4 people at a lunch table. I don't like that. I want a big old group. I got to shine. So,
You need a big audience.
yeah, it's one of those. These survival things are double-edged swords too, because we're empathetic. But I've literally given my winter jacket to someone in the middle of winter. That does not help me. I am the poorest man in publishing because I give away everything. Apparently, this is an interesting story that happened. It explains a lot with my survival, my mechanics, how I work. Somebody who's observed me for years on Facebook, and we all know if I sneeze, I post about it. Guys, you should have heard it. It was so loud. Anyway, she had me take a couple tests, and it turns out I'm borderline autistic. Now, the 5 of you have gotten to know me over the years. You know damn well that's not going to be something you'll ever hear out of my mouth again. I'm not going to use that as a crutch. I'm not going to use that as an excuse. It does explain a whole hell of a lot, but I'm not going to use it for anything other than to know that I had it. Much like this heart thing, I know now that I know I have it, that's the only thing that changes. I just know I have it. It doesn't do anything else for me, but it does explain some things. But all the things that you guys mentioned, and the humor and the charm thing that I mentioned, this is in our community, and I'm a comedian. It's in that community too. I walk into a party, I walk into a room, I walk into any place. If I see another comedian, and you'll hear super famous comedians like Chris Rock and Jerry Seinfeld say the same thing. They see another comedian, they say, "Oh, thank goodness, my people." And that's where they go. And it's just like with us. We see each other out somewhere. Oh, there's my people. That's where I'm going. That's where I'm settling. Our survival skills are amazing on their own. But if you get us in a group, like here, you get us in a group, we're dangerous. We're successful survivors for a reason, because we know where to look for help if we ever need help. If we're not stubborn enough to not ask for help, if we're good enough to do that, then yeah. So way to go, everyone. And Rhonda, thank you for that introduction. And now it's your turn.
Kids are being sold for sex. This is the sign for please help me. You can help. Here's how. Watch for these 4 signs of possible trafficking. Young people who look like they're being controlled. Young people who look avoidant or withdrawn. Young people who look like they've been abused. Young people who seem like they're unaware of their surroundings or situation. If danger seems imminent, call 911. Report what you see. Call 888-3737-888. Do not confront. Let law enforcement investigate. For more information and free resources, go to successfulsurvivors.org. I love your perspective. I just always feel like I have to sort of buckle up. And
You should. It's smart. It's a
it
smart play.
might be a roller coaster ride. So I love what everybody said. I just have I don't know, I think maybe a little bit to add to it, but we are successful survivors because somewhere along the line we learned survival skills. And when I say survival skills, I'm talking about, like you said, Diana, if you have $5, if somehow you're able to get $5, we don't go blow it on one meal at Carl's Jr. or whatever. We can make $5 last longer than anybody on earth. The whole thing about reading people, Chris, oh my gosh, I didn't even know that was a thing. I mean, I knew how to, I knew that I had a feeling about people right away, either connecting with them or being leery of them, being, distrustful, skeptical, but connecting, Diana, like you and I connected. Diana was showing me a house in Laguna Beach, and we're standing in the driveway, and we knew that there was a connection instantly, and then, talking a little bit, and we figure out what it is. I think survivors of trauma, we just go deeper in our conversations, in our relationships. And Chris, to your point, I feel the exact same way about, going to lunch with 3 or 4 people or whatever. And, who's talking about their golf game and who's talking about whatever recipe and who's talking about something else. And I'm like, people are dying. I don't say this, but on the inside, I'm like, within 15 minutes of your kids are being sold for sex. What the hell? Like, I can't sit in those conversations for very long before my head pops off and rolls around on the floor. So, people don't invite me to lunch if you don't want to have a deep conversation. I know you all know how to have a reasonable conversation about sports, weather. And I never learned that. I don't want to learn that. I don't care about all that. I just am have a sense of urgency about trying to save other people. And I think some of us are like that. We know what to do when we sense danger. We know how to keep going no matter what, no matter how we feel. We press through our feelings. We ignore our feelings. We ignore our pain impulses. Some of us won't stop and go to the bathroom when we're supposed to. We know how to ignore.
That's caught me a couple times.
Okay. We just know how to just press through all of that because we've had to. Anything, you name it. And those are all skills. I just want to wrap up this whole thing by making the point that every one of these survival skills and life skills, all the things that we know that most people don't know, are priceless. They're highly valuable. They're highly transferable into the workplace. You take that ability to figure out if somebody's tracking with you, if somebody understands you, your ability to pick up on if somebody's not feeling well or something's not right with them. And you take all of that and you take that to sales, you take that to marketing, you take that to customer service, you take that to caregiving. I'm hard pressed to figure out some industry where all of that is worthless. What we know how to do, I think, can translate into any job, any industry, anywhere. When a survivor shows up in the workplace and does every single thing that they're supposed to do, asks around to help other people, does everything that they just see that needs to be done, and nobody has to tell them to do it, and the customers love them and the coworkers appreciate them and everything. Let me tell you what happens. You get promoted, you're in charge. Or if you don't get promoted and you're not in charge, you leave and start your own business. And you just harness all those things that we know how to do and you will be successful. You can't not be successful. So what other thoughts would you guys like to share with our audience before we wrap this bad boy up?
I would say I absolutely love what Chris said earlier. He's hilarious. And, even in the therapeutic setting, and in my personal life. Promise, guys, I do separate the two. I have a personal and a professional. Humor is a gift. Yes, Chris, it's a gift, and it is one of the best things that I think all of us have in our own different ways. Using it in a healthy way is one of the most empowering tool, because it's not being overly optimistic. It's seeing opportunity in challenges. It's taking the gift of the hardships, and I think in summary of some of what people were saying too is survivors lean into fear. They face fear. Whatever the fear is, it might be work, it might be failure, it might be somebody judging them, it might be not knowing something. And whatever the failure is, we acknowledge it and we go through anyway. Like what Dawn was talking about in response to her brother, for safety for the others, or to meet the needs of another, maybe through humor or reassurance or through sales. Even if we don't like public speaking, we're going to do it anyway, Lee. Just wherever, whenever, because we feel we're doing it to make a difference. We have the really cool resilience to power through fear, which I will say this from the clinical side, not doing something like that or not acknowledging fear can fuel depression and anxiety. So isn't that a cool thing that we are naturally tuned to?
The reason that people don't like to speak in public is because back in the day, when you were in front of a large group, it was because you were about to be guillotined, you were about to be hanged, you were about to be burned. So it's innate in us to be fearful of large crowds. That's why people don't like to speak in public. I don't know why I like to. Maybe I got burned back in the day and this is my payback. But the reason that I think successful survivors don't necessarily like to be one-on-one, or as Ron and I don't like to be four-on-one, is because that's where a lot of our trauma came from. A lot of our trauma came from one person or a small group of people. And that's why we don't like to be in that situation. And that's why these things pop out of us when we're in those situations. It's interesting because if you watch superhero films or you read comic books, and you'll notice that the bulk of them come from foster care. The bulk of them are adopted, the best ones anyway. You'll notice that there was a moment when the skill or their superpower popped out of them. For Superman, he lifts a car as a baby because his new family was in danger. You see, so we're the same. When we need it, it pops out. And like Rhonda said, she didn't even know she had that skill to read a room. It comes out of you like Wolverine's claws when you're in danger, when you need it. And stop laughing. I'm trying to make a real point, Amber. I'm not funny all the time.
I'm sorry. I'm just picturing these movies. Like, these are awesome.
I am funny all the time. I can't help it. And Rhonda, I will always invite you to lunch because someone has to pay for lunch. And
Oh, well, yeah, I mean, invite me, but I'm going deep. I mean, there's just I only have like 15 words that are allotted to, general conversation. And the rest of it is people are dying and we have to do something. Yeah.
Saving the world all the time, every day. That is my Rhonda.
I think all successful survivors everywhere are in some kind of way helping other people. We always reach back on the path to the people who are on the path that we used to be on. And I think of you, Lee, adopting kids from foster care and then opening up a ministry to ease kids more gently into foster care. And Amber, what you do, you adopted and you became a social worker and a therapist, and you work in a school, you're helping kids. And, I mean, I could go on, and I know we're running out of time, but each of us does our thing. We all do our thing, helping people. And I love that. And I want to just, I love that we're doing this podcast because I want to just encourage everybody who's been victimized, shift in your head from being a victim to being a survivor, and then come along with us on this road to becoming a successful survivor. And you'll know when you're there because it's not measured by money or fame or Facebook followers or any of that. It's measured by who are you helping? How are you helping? And do you want to help? All of that. And I know that you do. And so anyway, I could launch on a whole other thing about let's define success correctly. Who else? Who else has any parting thoughts that you want to include in this particular podcast? Lee, thank you for volunteering again.
Again? Oh my goodness. Wow. One of the things I had running through my head as we were going through this particular subject of what do successful survivors have, and hearing everybody's perspective, and I appreciated those who shared that it's something you probably aren't aware of on a regular basis, that it's something that shows up in your toolbox when you need it. I know that we have the opportunity through this podcast to be talking to people who are trying to figure out how to be successful. What does that look like? And I love the idea in the future of doing a podcast that really focuses on those attributes of being successful. But when I think about, if I'm ever in a situation where I need to survive, I want to be in the bunker with all of my fellow successful survivors. I want to be in the bunker where it's not all mapped out in advance and we're just taking step one, step two. I want to be in the bunker that's being creative and thinking about the next step. There is a beauty as a survivor of being able to handle life as it comes at you. There are people who cannot do that. Their worlds are run by a checklist. And the minute that something goes sideways on their checklist, they do not know how to put the next foot forward. So that was kind of my thinking. And I just really want to invite all of those who are trying to figure this out, you're tired of being the victim. You want to be a survivor. You want to move into thriver, right? Beyond survivor. But you're just not sure what that looks like. Am I doing it right? First of all, there is no right way. As long as you're putting one foot in front of the other, that's the right way. And then Amber will be amazing at helping you figure out the feelings aspect of it. Chris will make you laugh at those feelings. Diana will find you a home for those feelings.
And metaphorically too, that's beautiful, and literal. That's important.
Dawn is an encourager. She's going to bring along encouragement for you as you walk through that. Rhonda and I are more of your hardcore, pull yourself up by the bootstraps. We're moving forward, buckle in for this roller coaster ride. Because we know that there's so much more that this life has to give to you than you feeling sorry for yourself or being stuck where you're at. And we love you enough to not let you sit there.
Ooh. Leah, I love what you just said. Rhonda, if I can, for just 1 second, I noticed that Diana was holding a pencil. If you are seeing this as a visual, I'm sure Chris has his phone, jotting these notes down. Dawn might too. And so I encourage listeners, from what she was just saying, what I kind of got out of that is list some of your own strengths right now that maybe you don't know you have, or have a friend or a person at work or a person in the family, maybe not even someone close to you, jotting down a few characteristics about yourself. You don't have to believe it yet to see it, but that's the first realization. None of us knew that these were skills or that these were survival techniques and strengths that we had. until we began to identify and understand what they were and then relate them to ourselves. So jotting them down just as a first step is pretty powerful from this session. And then Chris can help you create comic about it whenever you would like to contact him.
Yeah, just give me a ring if you want to be silly. If you want to be smart, you look at Rhonda's books or Amber's book, both that are featured on the Writers Marketplace at www.fosterfocusmag.com. And you can even read about what Lee does. We'll get Diana to put an ad for real estate stuff on there soon. and Dawn is seriously one of the best encouragers that there is. Very supportive. Everyone here has helped me either financially or otherwise through the magazine or personally during the last couple of years. So yeah, find yourself a community. Get happy in it. Let them deal with your weirdness. They'll like it. They have to.
Oh, accept your weirdness. It's a gift.
I love
Weird's
that.
cool.
Oh my
I
God.
love that.
Diana, what about you? Final thoughts?
Final thoughts are, it's funny when Lee said sometimes these tools just show up in your toolbox. See, the pen works. Wrote these things down. I love writing. When it clicked, that clicked so well for me because I'm like, it does. Sometimes it just, you're going through the motions and how you have no idea how it just came out or came up in your head, but it comes out in your action. It just shows up in your toolbox. Strong for others. We're very strong for others. I have many stories of how, you do this to me, you're listen, I'm going to light you on fire, but you do this to my family, you're flat toast. Like I protect my own, I protect my people, I protect my tribe. That's something that's just innate, also kind of showed up in the toolbox. So I would just say, like Amber said, write some things down. The empathy that we all have, that being empathetic, that gut thing that we have, that's all, it's just an innate thing. And if you didn't put a label on it, now you know. And it's a gift.
Okay, Dawn, take us home, girl.
Funny you all said I was an encourager. I was just going to just say, I'm going to encourage you. When you jot those things down, it can be overwhelming because I've done that. And I'm like, whoa, there's so many things. Or you get thinking of the negative things, right? And you jot those down. So those things that Amber was talking about, I would encourage you, just pick one. Just pick one thing. And don't overthink it. Learn from me. It is not helpful. It is not. I do it all the time. It's not helpful. I'm working on not doing it. But at the same time, also don't work too hard to find it if it's coming, right? Just be aware, go about your day, and learning to be self-aware. I've just learned this in the last year, you guys. It's crazy how, wow, okay, I don't even have to work on that anymore. I'm growing in that. How did that happen? Because life just happens and you just keep walking and you keep moving. And don't be afraid to go and be around people or go to places that are going to challenge you. Maybe bring a safe person with you. But if you just stay in your own little box, in your own little home, talk to your same old people, you're never going to grow and know what you need to work on because they may not tell you because you're too close. But if you get outside, like I've grown so much with knowing all of you guys, it's insane. I was talking to my therapist the other day and she's like, you don't need to come to therapy every week. I'm like, what? Oh, you're right. I don't, so you continue to grow without even realizing it, just being self-aware, writing down what Amber was telling you. Amber's got a ton of other things, tools that if you want to know about them, she's got them. I'm not going to take them away from her. But don't overthink it. Just live, be aware, and find some humor.
Oh my gosh, Dawn, that's so perfect. So you're stronger than you know you are. You're more courageous. You're resilient. You're tenacious. You know how to persevere. You know how to survive. And you are not too broken to be fixed. Come back and join us next time.